Zen and the Art of Saving the Planet. It's this must have come out after his stroke, and as I think we all know, he's now died. So there's a commentary in here accompanying his words by a senior student. I really, because we're doing Earth Dharma, Eco Dharma, we're all concerned about the fate of the earth. What do we do? And I love it. You'll see Thich Nhat Hanh says in here, the Diamond Sutra, the most ancient sutra. He said that was the first sutra. It was the first sutra of the Eco Dharma. I think this is so great, you know, that we could just keep turning Buddhism around and upside down and inside out. And it's always been here and it will always be here. And you can name it whatever you want, but essentially it's all alive, it's all connected. And this is the pioneers. This isn't Buddhism. It's all alive, it's all connected, it's all intelligent, and we're all relatives. But it's not what you think. So that's why we go to Buddhism and to Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings. And I'm not quite, I think this fits, but the story keeps coming up for me. Maybe I just want to tell this story because it's been up for me. And you may all have stories like this, or maybe that's what I'll ask you at the end. Stories are important and they're tricky. Because if you start believing the story, then you think you know something, and then you think that if it worked that time, it's going to work another time. There's a great story about Suzuki Roshi, and his teacher asked him to serve tea, and he tried and he tried and he tried and he couldn't get it right somehow. He was always doing something wrong, and finally came in and he got it right, and he was so happy. And he came back the next time with his teacher. And he did the exact same thing, and the teacher said wrong, because he wasn't paying attention to the circumstances. It wasn't the same thing that it was yesterday or even 5 minutes ago. So, but there's something in this story that feels to me about the earth and about practice and about how we do affect each other. So Bruce and I meant to ask him, I'm pretty sure we were in Sri Lanka, and we were in an East Asian country, either that or Myanmar. I'm pretty sure it was Sri Lanka, and at the most ancient, well-known temple. It was a beautiful temple. I remember that part of what it looked like, and the stairs that you went up, and it was up on this cliff, and there were lions that you had to go through to get there, and there were this amazing iconography everywhere, and then there were little temples up on the top of the rock. But the human part of this story is that at the bottom there were little booths set up that said, there are killer bees and you need to put on these bee suits to go up. It would be really dangerous to not do that. Now, I do have a skeptical, cynical side of us, and it was really, really hot. And there were lots of tourists putting on these bee suits, and Bruce and I just, in our arrogance or whatever it was, decided we did not need. I mean, they were like hazmat suits, you know, with the whole. I mean, they were serious, man. So we walked up, we got up to the top, everything was fine, and these poor sweating tourists, I'm revealing my cynical side, they were up there in their suits, and you know what? There were killer bees. I mean, they were big, and they were like jet bombers, and they were black, and they started swarming, and they were not passive, they went at you, and we read in the newspaper afterwards that people were hospitalized, and maybe some people died. So this is, don't be, well, I was going to say don't be cynical, just look carefully. So, but the story that I really wanted to tell you about this is So everybody's freaking out in their suits, without their suits. I mean, justifiably so. This was scary, and they had little cages up there, and they were madly rushing everybody into the cages and shutting the doors to save people from the bees. Now, one, I'm claustrophobic, so that's being shut in a cave, bee or no bee, is not my idea of a good time. So I looked around. We use our conditioning and our causes and conditioning. There was a Buddhist monk. Now, it could be a different Buddhist monk and a different circumstance, and it would be a completely different story. But I looked at him, and he was walking through this whole thing completely at ease and calm. I thought, I'm following him. So there were, Earth then came. There were maybe, I don't know if anybody else came. I was so focused on following this monk. I was so concentrated because the bees were everywhere. But somehow there was like this little force field of concentration and presence. And he just walked right through. And he walked right down to the bottom, and none of us got stung. And that was that, until we read in the newspaper that a lot of people had gotten stung and were hospitalized. So maybe the earth and the world isn't always nice. It's not always what you want it to be. You never know what's going to happen. But we can affect and help each other. I think that often in climate change, you know? So if we're all running around going, ah, it's the end of the world, ah, and somebody's just walking through one step at a time. You don't know. But in the end, what else are you going to do? So that's my little story. And I'll tell you Thich Nhat Hanh's. I've been feeling really kind of amazed by that monk and grateful. He clearly had practiced really hard and really long for a long time. I mean, I don't know, but I want to be just like him. No. Okay, Thich Nhat Hanh says, many of us are barely awake. We're living in the world, but we can't really see it. It's as though we're sleepwalking. To wake up, first of all, is to wake up to the beauty of the earth. You wake up to the fact that you have a body and that your body is made of the earth and the sun and the stars. You wake up to the fact that the sky is beautiful and that our planet is a jewel of the cosmos. You have an opportunity to be a child of the earth and to make steps on this extraordinary planet. Second, to wake up means to wake up to the suffering in the world. You wake up to the fact that the earth is in danger and living species are in danger. You want to find ways to bring relief, healing, and transformation. This requires a tremendous source of energy. But if you have a strong desire in you, a mind of love, that is the kind of energy that will help you do these two things. Wake up to the beauties of the planet to heal yourself, and wake up to the suffering of the world and try to help. This does fit my story, see? If you have that source of strength in you, you do have that source of strength in you. It's called practice. If you have that mind of love, you are what can be called a Buddha in action. Okay, then he talks about the Diamond Sutra, one of the most beloved scriptures in the Zen tradition and the earliest text to explore deep ecology. That just tickles me. Who knew the Diamond Sutra was exploring deep ecology? In the Diamond Sutra, The meditator is urged to throw away, to release 4 notions in order to understand their own true nature and the true nature of reality. The notion of self, the notion of human being, the notion of living beings, and the notion of lifespan. That's all. It's a pretty thorough job. In the sutra, it says that if you are still caught in these notions, we'll go over them, you are not yet free, and you cannot be a real bodhisattva. You're still in a cage, thinking there's an inside and an outside, which is not to say there isn't appropriate places where you should get in a cage. I don't want to set that up, but what is freedom? Freedom is being an awakened being, helping to relieve suffering in the world. But if you can break through these ideas, you'll have the insight, understanding, and freedom you need to help save the planet. It takes insight and courage to throw away an idea. If we have suffered deeply, it may be because we held onto an idea we weren't able to release. To always check, especially if you feel constricted or afraid, is what am I hanging on to? I mean, meet it with a kind of kindness and awareness. This isn't about like, let go, you dummy. But just with kindness. What am I hanging on to right now? My tradition, Thich Nhat Hanh, belongs to the lineage of the 9th century Zen master Lingji. He said, my aim is not to give you knowledge. My aim is to help you break free from your views. Understanding should not be only empty knowledge. There's so many things in the teachings about people who studied and studied and studied and thought they knew something. And then something comes along and it was all heads. I mean, please study. I love to study, but this is about embodied awareness, living it over and over. That's a life of vow. Insight is not the outcome of thinking. Insight is a kind of direct, intuitive vision. Suzuki Roshi says that Zazen is an intuitive body. Thich Nhat Hanh uses that word here too. It's intuitive. A direct, intuitive vision that you get from strong concentration. So there's a clue. When you sit, you keep coming back. You come back to body, breath, earth, come back. Come back. It's not a product of thinking. It is a deep intuition. And if it is a real insight, it will have the power to free you from your anger, your fear, and your suffering. And hence free the whole world, even though it may not look like it in the moment. But we do affect each other and everything. Okay, the first notion you must throw away is the notion of a self. This is a very deep-rooted belief. Very deep-rooted. Study this, how deeply rooted it is and how self-centered we are. With kindness. It's a very deep-rooted belief in every human being that there is a self separated from the rest of the world. That we're ourselves and everyone and everything else, including the earth, is not us. Now you can catch that most when you're in reactivity, or you can feel some kind of emotional conditioning has been triggered. Take a breath and study it with kindness. In fact, there is no one, no self there. There is thinking. There is reflection. A better statement would be, I enter am. Studying something by Uchiyama Roshi, and he says thoughts are just secretions. Just see them as secretions. We think our thoughts are us. That's a very, could get you in a lot of trouble. And if nothing else, it will keep you going in the same old loop. Come back to the intuitive body. Study things, think things, think some thinking isn't bad, just know the limitations of it. The notion of a separate self is like a tunnel that you keep going into. When you practice meditation, you can see that there is the breathing, but no breather. Who's breathing? I go, breathe now. It's just breathing. Isn't that a miracle? No breather can be found anywhere. There is the sitting, but no sitter can be seated, and it can be found anywhere. I'm sitting now, I'm sitting now, I'm sitting now. Just body sitting. You sat, the body itself sat the body down on the earth. Breathing, sitting, moving, sensations, feelings, thoughts, clouds. Alive. No, it's me. I'm in charge. And then when something goes wrong, it's like, what did I do wrong? You must have done something wrong. No. When you see there is no one to be found, the tunnel will vanish and there will be a lot of space and a lot of freedom. The second notion of the Diamond Sutra tells us to throw away the notion of human being. Looking deeply, we see that humans are made only of non-human elements, including plants, animals, and minerals. Not only historically, but in this very moment, we continue to interbe with all the non-human elements within us and around us. What are you having for dinner tonight? What's having you for dinner tonight? It's very clear, without minerals, plants, and animals, how can there be human beings? We are so deeply interwoven and intertwined. If you remove or return all these elements, a human being cannot exist anymore. The sun, the moon, the stars. And yet we seek to protect and defend ourselves by destroying our non-us elements, including other species. Humans are made of all our ancestors. The mountains, the river, the rose, the planet are all made of non-mountain, non-river, non-rose, non-planet elements. And when we can see that, we are free to deeply, intuitively be. What is this thing we call birth? What is this thing we call death? Where does it come from? And what is it that's born? And what is it that dies? It's the kind of questions children ask. What is it? Then we grow up and we sort of start to think we know something. And we do know something, but we don't know very much. Third notion we have to break through is the notion of living beings. Right? We're alive and there's some dead other things over there. Or it's a dead environment. It was like when I was following that monk, it was not a dead environment. We were not walking through dead rocks. We were walking through an alive temple of worship and alive air and space and concentration. There was nothing. The bees were very alive. That was very clear. Everything is alive, which means there's agency in it if we show up. Many of us are caught in a distinction between sentient or animate beings and non-sentient or inanimate matter. Yet the science of evolution tells us we have not only human and animal ancestors, but also mineral ancestors. To separate out living beings from the inanimate world and make a divide between them is incorrect. A speck of dust, the elemental particle, the quark, they are us and we are them. We need to transcend the notions of body and matter, spirit, of body and mind, spirit and matter, consciousness in the material world. They are a big obstacle. then you'll start thinking, we're doomed. Because there's something out there happening that somebody else is doing, and I have no power over it. Now just show up over and over and over. When we look at the earth in the light of this insight, we don't see the planet as inert matter, but as a sacred reality that we are also a part of. Seeing in this way, our attitude toward the planet will change, and we'll be able to walk with steps of love and respect on the earth, and we'll realize our great capacity to help. And fourth, lifespan. Back to birth and death. We believe that there is a moment in time in which we were born, and there's another moment in which we die, and we think we only exist between these 2 points, right? Where did they go? Where did a minute ago? This is to be caught in the idea of a lifespan. We think we are only on this earth for a very short moment. We have the impression that we came from the realm of non-being into being. And after staying in the realm of being for perhaps 100 years, well, maybe, we'll pass into the realm of non-being again. It's how we track things, right? But it's really funny with little children, how much when you ask them how old they are, how ingrained this is. It's like they don't tell you they're 3, they tell you they're 3.5. They're trying so hard to grow up and be somebody, which is what they have to do, which is what we have to do. It's like, please be somebody. But then remember, it's not what you thought it was. Remember what you've always known and come home. There is only continued manifestation in different forms. And before we were born, we were already here. And after we die, we will continue to be here. Would you intuitively sometimes just know this? And then your mind goes, no. But an intuitive body, the mind can't categorize it, but the intuitive body knows. Nothing can pass from the realm of being into the realm of non-being. The more we practice these 4 eco-dharmas from the earliest Diamond Sutra, the more the Buddha in us wakes up. The Buddha who has always been here, will always be here. The Avatamsaka Sutra says that there are little Buddhas on every speck of the earth that have practiced across time and space. So wherever you're sitting, there have been so many Buddhas practicing. If you could just open up, and then I think, well, in the future, whatever that is, do they know that you're sitting here on this piece of earth right now, trying to wake up and be a good person and listen? You really have to drop down into a Buddha body. It's a Zazen body. It's an alive body that includes a thinking mind. Uchiyama Roshi says, open the hand of thought. It's like you think the world is this big? Open and open and open, over and over. And the good thing about living right now is you can't go to sleep as much as we used to. Something will keep whacking us. Might be killer bees, or it might be bird song. The more we wake up, the more we look around.